40-0. The Dallas Cowboys lay down one of the most dominating performances in opening week NFL history by blanking the New York Giants on the road 40-0. 40 burgers and shutouts in the opening week of the 2023 NFL season. Welcome in to the First Word presented by Dr. Pepper alongside Nate Newton, three-time Super Bowl champion. We have Super Bowl champion Isaiah Stanback here. I'm Kyle Yeomans, and gentlemen, it's hard to find a better opening matchup than the Cowboys and the Giants on opening night, but this was really all Cowboys from the get-go. Nate, 40-0, and they, of course, took control early and never looked back.
You know, and who took control was that defense. They did what they had to do. They had 7 sacks total, a number of quarterbacks hits and hurries. The defense set the tempo, and, I mean, they did a hell of a job.
If you were to play a game of Madden, Kyle, and you were 6 months old and I handed you the sticks, this is probably the result that you would have came out with.
Wow.
This was a one-sided affair. The Dallas Cowboys couldn't have been more perfect on both sides of the ball and special teams. So all three phases of the game, this is exactly how they would have drawn it up. It's complete dominance.
Let's start with the defensive side because that's where they deserve to start, really, is the way that they stood in the pocket and really pressured Daniel Jones from the get-go was unbelievable. It felt like he was being pressured nearly every time he dropped back. Dan Quinn certainly in his bag in that first week of the regular season. Is this the ceiling or is this just the beginning for this Cowboys defense? Because it's hard to see anything better than what we saw tonight.
I really can't look past tonight. I mean, when I was watching these guys, watching Daniel Jones in the backfield, it looked like the scene from Talladega Nights where he was just running for his life. And that's the visual I had because he was literally running for his life the entire time. I don't think there was more than 5 times where he was able to actually set his feet and throw an actual ball that he felt good about. This defensive front that we knew was deep, probably three guys deep. These guys just kept going after him, getting after him. It didn't matter who was out there. It didn't matter if it was Micah. It didn't matter if it was D-Law, Sam Williams, Dorrance. I mean, all these guys wanted in on the party, and it was the party in the backfield.
You know, when the game first opened up, they were driving. Saquon over here, Daniel Jones around the outside. We kept talking, they break and contained, and all of a sudden, a sack. Stays disciplined and stays in his lanes and make things happen. And once he hit that pressure point, it'll be all over. And for Daniel Jones, it was all over.
Yeah, and we'll get to special teams in a moment because that's really when things turned for the Cowboys. But 2 sacks for Osa Odighizuwa, 2 for Dorrance Armstrong, 1 for Parsons that set the tone early on as well. Chauncey Golston had 1. DeMarcus Lawrence had 1 in there as well. But you also talk about the turnovers, the fact you had multiple interceptions. DeRon Bland with a pick 6 from 22 yards out, forced by Trayvon Diggs in a heavy hit he laid down. Nate, what was the most impressive element of this Cowboys defense in week 1?
I think once they got past that first drive was the tackling. I mean, like you say, when Trayvon Diggs came up, not 1 force, but 2 force, that right there, Isaiah, you had to love that.
I loved every part of it because the one thing that we've been harping on him about that he needed to improve upon was what part of his game?
Tackling.
Yeah, tackling and physicality, the willingness to want to go out there and put his helmet in there. But all of a sudden, somebody by the name of Stephon Gilmore shows up, and all of a sudden, he wants to get physical, and I am here for it because you just heard Nate talk about the 2 forced fumbles. That was huge. Sometimes you're not going to get the interceptions, but how else can you affect the game positively? You saw it here tonight from him.
I think that's the big thing is yes, he had an interception, Stephon Gilmore, but it's all the extra elements that he and then Brandon Cooks added to the offensive side of the ball, and you saw Brandon Cooks show up in that first half as well. But before we go to the offense, you got to start with special teams, right? Wanye Thomas over the top on that drive that Nate's alluding to, that opening drive, 10 plays in, New York's driving, they're running the ball at will. It looked like some of the old problems from the Cowboys in 2022 of stopping that run was rearing its ugly head again. Instead, they do get the bad snap. Daniel Jones has to fall back on the football. Next play, Wanye Thomas leaps, blocks the punt. Noah Igbenogany in his Cowboys debut returns it for a touchdown. I mean, special teams is the third element, but it's just as important at times, and they were able to show that they are important and they are a big piece of this team, and they showed it tonight.
We worried about the kicker.
And he did miss an extra
we worried
point.
about
What
I'm saying as we was talking about the kicker all training camp long, but you know what, Foster has some other things in mind, and I'm telling you, it jumped big for us tonight.
Wanye Thomas, we've been screaming his name and saying yay about Wanye all preseason. This dude was, you got to remember now, second preseason game against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
First one.
Was it the first one?
It was the first
one. No disrespect. He picked out Trevor Lawrence on the first play of the game. So this dude can play defense, but also he is now a core special teamer for Fossil in this special teams unit. You lost a couple of guys, okay, Luke Gifford or Noah Brown. You lost those guys as core members. But you picked one up in Wanye.
Yeah, he definitely did. And he actually had some nice plays defensively as well in the first half. Had a pass breakup, was in coverage a couple different times, so he showed off the versatility there. Now, on the offensive side, there really wasn't the stat lines. There's really, when you look all the way up and down, 13 of 24 passing for Dak Prescott, 143 yards. Did not throw an interception, but he also didn't have a touchdown pass. Cowboys relied on the ground game a little bit. Tony Pollard with 70 yards. Rico Dowdle with 24. Kevontae Turpin in his first career NFL touchdown. He only had the 14 yards, but he ran the ball effectively when needed. Did you see enough out of this offense early to really define who they are? Or did they just have to sit back and control the game with as good as the defense was playing?
This is what I was talking about when I said that you could look forward to not seeing the flashy play of years past. This was Dallas Cowboys offense from this point forward. Play well enough, play keep away, and take care of the ball and let your defense go hunt. This is
when he had to play. Cook made a play when he had to play. Ferguson had a few drops, but those were questionable with the passes. These guys played efficient. They ran the ball well. They passed it good enough. And this is what I'm talking about. When you're leading the game, there's no reason to throw the ball all over the field, to take chances. Dak didn't do that today. This is the Dak that we know. Thanks, Coach McCarthy.
CeeDee Lamb, 4 targets, 4 receptions. He had 77 yards. Over half of what the Cowboys passing game went to CeeDee Lamb, most of that on 49 yards in the first half. Now, there were some things you want to work on. Jake Ferguson had 7 targets, only had the 2 receptions, couple drops from Ferguson, Hendershot, Turpin had a drop as well. Was that just really based on the elements? I mean, the rain started coming down in the second half. That played a certain factor, but luckily they held on to the football. They didn't turn it over, and I think that's probably a key as well.
Yeah, I mean, Ferguson's still getting his feet underneath him, right? He's really, for this first year, this is the first time he's really the man. So obviously the elements played a part in it. Those guys have to learn some tricks of the trade. They kept the sticky gloves on that actually get slippery when it rains. They should have put the leathers on that get sticky when it rains. That's stuff that vets will show them and will teach them. Or maybe B. Cooks will show them a little something.
Maybe.
Some of those balls were on Dak. You know, we talked about it in the pregame show, talked about the location. You saw some back shoulder throws that should have been on the front shoulder. So those are some of the things that they had to clean up, but luckily they didn't have any turnovers. They can go back, watch the film, correct it, and not have to worry about it going forward.
You go on the road, you do what you had to do. You was efficient on defense, you took over. You was efficient on offense, you took over on defense, you did what you had to do on special teams. Offensive line played well, they didn't give up nothing crucial. That's a good game.
I wanted to ask about the offensive line. Of course, Tyler Smith out for the week 1 with the hamstring injury that he had earlier in the week. And they thought maybe there was a chance he could go, and he ends up coming and missing this game in week 1. First time he's missed a game, by the way, since he was drafted in the first round. Did you like the way Chuma Edoga plugged in and played at left guard?
He was efficient. He did what he had to do. And we had a little worry, a little scare with him on there. Even Tyron Smith, we had a little scare. But these guys gutted it out. And for the first time playing together this season or going into this regular season, they did a nice job. They kept Dak upright. He doesn't have a lot of pressure. So I'm good. I'm good with it if we can just get better as the season goes on.
If you take Deuce Vaughn's carries, which really came towards the end of the game, I mean, Dallas Cowboys were averaging about 4.5 yards per carry. So you have to be happy with that. The fact that they were able to be that effective and that efficient on the offensive front with Dexter Lawrence, with Leonard Williams in there, that says a lot about this offensive line in this front and their continuity that they have, even with one of their key elements missing.
It's never a perfect game, ever, in the game of football. There's things always to work on. At 40-0, it's kind of a little bit tougher to find those miscues and those things to work on. But I want to ask you, as the Cowboys turn their attention from the Giants to the Jets at home in week 2, Aaron Rodgers and company coming to town, where do you want to see the most improvement for this Cowboys team heading into that second matchup?
I think it's not necessarily the most improvement, but I think that these guys are really going to have to get on their keys. I think especially the secondary is going to have to get on their keys. I'm not sure. I don't think that the offensive line of the Jets is that great. We'll find out more about that tomorrow night in their first game. But I think that obviously facing Aaron Rodgers, this dude has seen absolutely everything. You know that you can make him uncomfortable. But if they don't get home for some reason, somehow, some way, they're really going to have to be locked in on their keys because that Jets receiving group is pretty doggone solid. And, of course, you got, Mr. John Wick throwing him the ball.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Aaron Rodgers, that's just a different guy. You're going to expect, for guys to be on the keys, knowing what they need to do because Aaron Rodgers is going to have these guys. He's coming to New York. This ain't Green Bay. I got nothing against Wisconsin, but this is New York. The lights are on. He's Mr. Hard Knocks. He stole the show. Be ready.
Pretty on the field to watch. This will be a fun film study for all those out there for the Cowboys. We'll leave you here on the first word with some of the final stats in the Cowboys' 40-0 Week 1 win over the New York Giants. As you see across the board, the Cowboys dominant in every fashion, especially on the defensive side of the ball. 40 burgers and shutouts in Week 1. For Nate Newton, Isaiah Stanback, and our entire Dallas Cowboys crew, I'm Kyle Yeoman saying so long on the first word. We'll see you in Week 2 against the Jets.